Ahoy! And welcome to the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. The Boating Hour brings you the latest and greatest essential information about everything that sails, floats, or motors upon the high seas of Southern California. From landlubbers to old salts, there'll be something for everyone. So climb aboard and get ready to sail with Captain Rick.
Ahoy out there, and welcome to the Boating Hour. I'm Captain Rick, and I want to thank you for joining us here on AM 870. We're here every Saturday at 4 p.m., and please be sure to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com, and now on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, The Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks to our sponsors for our show today. For a healthy gut, the best probiotic on the market, Livia One Probiotics, natural, organic, and allergen-free. And Raycom radios, reliable two-way radios, commercial radios throughout Southern California without all the inherent limitations of drop zones and dead batteries. Raycom radios. Well, today we're talking about Catalina, actually the whole month of August. And we've got Jim from the Visitors Bureau at Catalina. Is that your official title, Jim, from the Visitors Bureau?
Officially, my title is President and CEO at Love Catalina Island. But yes, we are the Visitors Bureau, Chamber of Commerce, all of those things wrapped up into one.
I don't know what it is. Do you know what I know Disneyland is one of the most visited spots in California. So where do you rank? Because Catalina, everybody I know knows Catalina. And they all want to come here, whether they're fishing or snorkeling or sailing or boating. So where do you guys rank? You've got to be ranking right up there with Disneyland.
Well, I guess I'm happy to say that we don't compete with Disneyland because we don't have the capacity to take that many guests in here. But we have about 1 million visitors a year in a typical year. It can be 1.2 one year and 998,000 another year. And those are real head counts like Disneyland. Everyone has to transact a gateway here, whether it's a boat mooring rental or a ticket on a boat. So we actually know our true visitor counts. And on the Avalon end of the island, it hovers around 1 million to 1.2 million a year. So very strong, but not Disneyland.
But that is shocking, 1 million. I had no idea. You know, everybody and all. A lot of people buy their boats. A lot of my friends, their fishing boats or their sailboats, just so that they can go to Catalina.
Yeah, and not included in that number are a lot of the boating facilities that are to the west of us. So all of those coves between Avalon and Two Harbors, or even up to Cherry Cove, have moorings on them and are actively visited by boaters. So I'm absent those numbers because they're mostly managed privately. Oh, and so we don't have a reporting mechanism for them to add to my numbers, but I know they're well used.
Well, let's talk about Love Catalina, because that's your website, right? LoveCatalina.com? Yes,
it is.
That's a great website. I want to talk about the origins of that. How did you guys come up with the because that's very catchy, because everybody loves Catalina, so it's LoveCatalina.com. What's the origins of that?
So a few years back, we were looking at building a new website and really upping our branding and marketing efforts. And we went through a series of processes, including looking at visitor demographics, looking at visitor spending, looking at visitor origins. And then we did some market surveys, and we asked visitors to the island what they thought about Catalina Island. And at an overwhelming response, 80++ percentile, the immediate reply was, "Oh, I love Catalina Island." So when a consumer tells you what you are at that level, you embrace it, and that's how we came up with that as our domain and a primary position. And actually, even what we call ourselves day to day now, we call ourselves Love Catalina Island instead of a big long word mash of Visitors and Convention Bureau or Chamber of Commerce and Visitors Bureau.
Oh, excellent. I like that. All right, let's talk about visiting Catalina. What are the ways to come over? I know there's a whole host of different kind of people that come over. And so tell me the different ways to get over to Catalina, the different things to do there, how people come, and give me the Visitors Bureau pitch.
Okay, about 75% on an annualized basis of our visitors come via passenger ferries, And there's two companies that provide that passenger ferry service, the Catalina Flyer out of Newport Beach and the Catalina Express that provides service from Dana Point, Long Beach, and San Pedro. So that makes up the majority of our visitors. The next biggest segment is, in most years, cruise ship passengers. We have up to 3 or 4 cruise ships a week during the peak season and fewer in off seasons. And that brings us about 20 to 25% in a typical year of the rest of the leisure visitors, but they're obviously here for a much shorter visit than our typical cross-channel or ferry passengers who tend to be more of an overnight, longer stay visitor. The next segment is a very small fraction for Avalon, but it tends to have a longer stay and a big economic impact, and that's the private boaters. And so that can vary from, as little as 900 passengers in a month all the way up to 5,000. The month of July, we typically have around 5,000 people aboard boats is the technical measure. So it's and I know anecdotally, both as a family travel history to the island and just what I'm witness to, is it's not uncommon to have someone bring their boat over and sit on a mooring and then have a fluid body of family or guests come and go. So if anything, I think we're undercounting that because they do it based on the arrival, not on that additional flow of people.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the two smallest numbers, but a very much appreciated audience, are those who come on one of our charter helicopter companies. Maverick Helicopters is the primary company that provides that service out of Long Beach and by the Queen Mary and in Orange County by John Wayne. But they also do on-demand. They can pick you up on your helipad if you have one at your place of work or anywhere. And you may know the name Maverick from their operations at the Grand Canyon.
Sure.
And in Hawaii. They're a significant operator. So we'd certainly benefit from having a high-profile company like that providing services here. They also do heli tours here, like at the Grand Canyon. And then the final one we lump into air travel is private passenger aircraft that come into the airport in the sky. And that one's kind of a mixture. We have people who come fairly long-term and actually do a novel thing called underwing camping. It's legal at our airport to camp under the wings of your plane.
Wow.
And or they take the shuttle into town and just enjoy town for a day or two and then get back on their plane and fly home. Or a lot of people just fly over for lunch. We have amazing food at the Airport in the Sky restaurant. And if you're a pilot and you're, bored on a Sunday, you go down, hop in your plane, fly over, have lunch, take back a world famous chocolate chip cookie. Airport in the Sky is famous for its chocolate chip cookie.
Okay.
And fly home. So those are the ways that you get here.
I had no idea there was air travel. I didn't know you had the helicopter. I've never seen the airport. I've heard about it, but how do you get all your supplies? Does it come in the, is it by ship or by plane? Because you must be dependent on supplies from the mainland.
We are. From its origin, the island has been dependent on bringing services and supplies from the mainland. And the largest cargo vessel that brings goods back and forth to the island is operated by Avalon Freight Services out of the port of San Pedro. And that's a custom-built, flat-bodied barge that, like a Vaughn's delivery truck like you'd see going down the interstate in the mainland, or a Budweiser truck, any of those can actually be put right onto that barge, and they come over here on a multi-hour trip, and then they come into just outside the city of Avalon, but still within the port of Avalon. They dock out at an area that locals refer to as Pebbly Beach, and all of that is unloaded. And even me as an individual or someone coming here, if you don't want to drag all your luggage or what have you, or if you've just gone to IKEA on the mainland, you can drop that stuff off and it goes in a cargo bin. And then when it arrives here, they text you and you go out and pick up your stuff and bring it to your home. So we actually have, I've seen people with a bunch of luggage being dropped off that they're coming for a long-term stay, and they just send it over that way. It's easier than trying to carry it. Then another way that a lot of goods and services are provided for us, especially goods, is Catalina flying boats. And we've had a history of converted old bombers all the way up now to modern cargo planes, small jet or even prop planes that fly from Long Beach to the airport in the sky. And that's how our FedEx, our UPS, our Costco.com, those sorts of things all come that way. Our U.S. mail comes that way. And then, of course, those of us who live here, if we get over town is what locals say when referring to going to the mainland. When we get over town for that doctor's appointment or something that you need to take care of just personally, a Trader Joe's run is an absolute. So we all lug stuff back ourselves that way, too.
God, this is fascinating. I didn't realize how much is going on a day-to-day. How did you get to the island? Let's hear your story.
Well, as a teenager primarily, but technically even as a preteen, my family were boaters and had homes and/or boats in the Long Beach, Alameda Bay area. So we were frequent boater visitors here. In college, I short-term crewed on a sailing race boat out of Long Beach, and so that brought me here on a lot of Wednesdays.
Okay. What kind of sailboat?
And then professionally, I knew my predecessor throughout. I worked in tourism as an adult. I worked in tourism up in Ventura County and then later in New Mexico. And I knew my predecessor, Wayne Griffin, who recently passed away after retiring. But he was here for over 20 years, and everybody in California tourism knew Wayne very well. When he chose to retire, within about 3 or 4 hours of his retirement announcement, I had a half a dozen friends pinging me saying, come back to California, apply for this job. We want you to come back. And so I threw my hat in the ring and went through several months of interviews and luckily got the job. So I've been here since 2014.
Wow, that's exciting. So you were a racer. Tell me about your racing.
I was crew, and I was low man on the crew, so I almost didn't even say that because I don't want to oversell my sailing experience. I was often the guy down in the galley handing beers up to the other boats. So I'll
Very
just sort of
important.
leave it at
That's the most important job. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's how any skipper gets his crew. So the most, racing is a lot of fun. I'm somewhat of a dinghy sailor or crew myself on the bigger boats, and it's an excuse to get out on the water. I really love it, and I've got a lot of friends that are fishermen. Let's talk about the fishing. Do you get a lot of people that come over? Because I know Farnswood Bank is a great spot for diving, and your fishing must be out of this world. So tell me what goes on in the fishing world.
Little known fact: we have 8 California State Marine Reserves in various spots around the island that are no-take. You can't fish there. But because of those protected zones, we have amazing fishing everywhere else. And you can fish, 10 feet outside those boundaries. I'm not a real fisherman, so I'm a little bit ignorant of the catch and the size, but I do know that we have a big fish scale on the pier, and we have a cannon at the yacht club that they fire when people get really big catches, and we have fishing tournaments and the kids fishing derby every summer, every Wednesday morning. I know just from standing in the booth at what was Fred Hall, now it has a different name. I've been in that booth for many years at the trade show, and we hear too often, but we still appreciate them from fishing type visitors, that I go to Catalina X number of times a year, multiple times a year, and I've never stepped foot on the island because they come over in a boat, they fish offshore, and they go back home. And so it's always my challenge in that conversation to convince them to come ashore, have dinner, stay longer.
Well,
and I try.
No, that isn't. I have a lot of friends that have told me the same story. Actually, I've gone a couple times, and I'm ready to pack up and try to, figure out what food to bring. They say, food. You don't need food. We're going to catch our food. So it is a wonderful thing. It's now the Bard Hall show. So Bard Hall is Fred's son, and
That's right.
He's kept it going. He had his show last year in Long Beach. He's got 3 shows at Pomona, 1, but the Long Beach show he moved to January, so it caught a lot of people by surprise. But he told me that after COVID was over, he had trouble getting people to come into the shows because all the boat brokers were out of inventory. So we had a couple great years of fantastic, exciting stuff and fishing and sailing and boating. And then we had the lockdowns. And in the lockdowns, of course, the shows, it was empty for, I think, 3 years, maybe 2. But he had trouble. So I know Bard Hall is really ramping up, and this last year was pretty successful. He did 3 shows. So, yeah, it's you guys are there. You're going to see me there, so I'll definitely be there. I'd like to move and retire to Catalina. Tell me about the people that live there, that have retired there. What kind of community? Are they pretty much retirees, or are they working in the industry? How many people and what kind of people retire or live and work on the island?
Oh, gosh, let me think. So it's a smattering. It's all across the board, like a lot of communities that cater to leisure travelers. We have a majority, I'd say, of our residents are those who work in hospitality.
Okay.
And it is not uncommon for many of us in the industry to work multiple jobs during the peak season and then have your one sort of baseline job that gets you through the winter. So you make bank while you can. When there's high demand, you maybe work at a bar or a restaurant or drive a cab in addition to whatever your baseline job is the rest of the year. And that's ranging anything from healthcare. We have an 8-bed hospital here. Utilities, we have a public utility system through Edison that's gas, water, and electricity. Municipal government, county government. We have Long Beach Unified School District is part of how we get our educational services. We have a single campus K through 12. And then housekeeping, waiter, waitress, cook, hotel management, many people who own vacation rental properties that also use them themselves. So they reserve out the weeks they're going to come here and rent them the rest of the time. So that's a big part of how people stay on the island, is renting vacation rentals. And those would be considered, the owners would then be considered part-time residents. And we do have retirees. I feel like most of the retirees that I meet here that are full-time residents are people who spent their careers here and stay because of their love of the community, or maybe the next generation, their kids or grandkids are here. They don't want to be far away from them. We have many, many multi-generational families here on the island. Let me think, what else? We do have a lot of retirees in that second homeowner class, whether they rent them out as vacation rentals or just keep them for their own use. I can just squinting and picturing my block, I've probably got 8 people who are out of their professional age range but are here frequently but don't live here full time, but have this as a second home, like a lot of people have in Big Bear or Lake Tahoe. We're just another one of those communities.
Interesting. Well, God, it's a fascinating island. It's a big island. So we're talking about Avalon. So most of the activity that goes on. What about the rest of the island? How do people get around? Is there communication throughout the island? And what goes on the rest of the island?
So the other 87% of the island is all but a few little fractional carve-outs operated by the Catalina Island Conservancy in a land trust that was created by the Wrigley family back in the 70s. And for all intents and purposes, it's kind of like a national park. It's not funded that way. It's funded privately as a nonprofit, but that's very much the experience you have there. So plants, animals, and everything are managed for preservation and invasive species are managed out to the best of their ability. And there is transportation from Avalon or from the little village of Two Harbors on the other end of town, on the other end of the island, that will get you into that space. Again, local speak, we call it the interior of the island. And when you travel there, you will see California unspoiled. It's what the Portuguese or Spanish explorers would have seen when they arrived in California and here on the island. Back in the day, it's native, unspoiled, amazing, beautiful landscape. There are places on the backside of the island that look like the Big Sur coast, but with no infrastructure, no highway, no bridges, nothing like that.
My goodness. What do I got to do? Tell me, Jim, what do I got to do to get a little patch of land to put a nice little shed? I'll get my sponsor Raycom to put an antenna, and then do my show out of Catalina, and then the rest of the week I'll go fishing and kayaking and camping and hiking. What do I got to do
You can buy a condo or a home or a vacant lot in Avalon. That's the place where you can actually own your own property, or you might be able to do like an islander and get a gig working for the Conservancy, so that maybe you get housing out in the interior somewhere when you wear your ranger uniform, and then you could do the rest of that on your free time.
Wow, that would be exciting. You know, I've got next week. I've got Leslie coming over from the manager of the harbor office in Two Harbors. So she's going to be she's going to be my guest next week. You know, Catalina is absolutely fascinating. The first time I went over was with the Scouts. So I went to the Scout Camp at Emerald Bay, and I was a Scout. And I know the Scouts, they're still coming over, you know, like they used to.
Yeah, we still have active scouting camps. We have YMCA camps. We have religious youth camp programs. And probably one of the greatest makers of future lovers of Catalina that we've got is CIMI, C-I-M-I, Catalina Island Marine Institute. And literally everywhere I go in the world, when I identify that I'm from Catalina Island, I meet somebody who says, oh, I went to CIMI when I was X years old, you know, insert teen or young person age, you know, 9 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old, and I fell in love with Catalina, and I go back and I do this and I do that, and it's one of those scientifically enriching, culturally enriching, love-making entities that is unparalleled. I don't think there's anything else on the island that fosters as much appreciation of this place as CIMI does.
Well, I love Catalina and lovecatalina.com. And Jim, you've been a fabulous guest. I barely scratched the surface. I'd like you to come back on. This has really been phenomenal. And you're going to see me. I'm going to be over a couple of times, you know, in August and September. I'm going to try to go when the season calms down just a little bit. But you've been a great guest. Lovecatalina.com. Jim, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for me, and I really jokingly said I want to retire and move out there, but I think I'm dead serious. I think I'm going to come out there and go hiking and camp around and figure out how I can end up going to Catalina, and I'll come to the mainland once in a while to feed my kitty cat and show up to my fisherman friends and my sailor friends. But this has been wonderful. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed our show. As always, we're so very fortunate to have such wonderful and exciting guests, and boy, all summer long, we've had some fabulous guests. Next week coming up from Two Harbors, we're going to have Leslie talking about Catalina again. So remember, if you do it right and follow the guidelines and safety precautions, there's no place like being out of the water in the fresh air and sunshine in beautiful, sunny Southern California. And let's not forget the coasties protecting our waters, America's lifesavers and guardians of the sea. Thanks to our sponsors for our show today for a healthy gut, Livia One Probiotics and Raycom Radios, commercial reliable two-way radios throughout Southern California without drop zones, dead batteries, and the inherent limitations of all other communication systems. Raycom Radios. Don't forget to visit us on the web, theboatinghour.com. Keep your emails coming. This is Captain Rick saying enjoy your summer. Ahoy and fair winds to all.